you have to figure out what works for you. I can give suggestions about trying different strategies, but if it's not a strategy that feels right for your body, feels right for you, doesn't really work for you, then it's not going to be a strategy that sticks for you, and then you can move on. I always feel like it's sort of like a menu of choices where you're like, well, you could try this or you could try this, and you listen to your body. You listen to how it feels. You listen to what is going on for you. Does it work for me if I do this thing when I'm feeling anxious? Yes or no?
Hi, welcome to the ADHD Social Playbook podcast. I am your host, Caroline Maguire. Today on the podcast, I am chatting with my friend and ADHD expert, Janine Halloran of Coping Skills for Kids. Janine is an expert in anxiety. She is a mental health counselor. She has worked with elementary, middle schools for years. She has wonderful books, Coping Skills for Kids. If you haven't gone to her website and read her book, it's incredible. In this episode, we talk about anxiety and coping skills. And what I really love about this is we get into sort of a menu of how you can find supportive coping skills that you can do even when you're out and about, when you get hijacked or go into flight, fright, or freeze. And it's really interesting because I've always been sort of against grounding techniques. I've really never used them effectively. But ever since I filmed this interview with Janine, I have been using some of her techniques and they really, really work. And I find them very ADHD friendly. Like I can do them in a setting when I'm out and about, and they're very accessible. I actually remember them. Oh, this is only part one of the conversation. So subscribe and stay tuned for part two. Okay, Janine. Okay, so we all have anticipatory anxiety. And, when can you bring in a coping skill? Because I get that by the time you're hijacked and flooding, well, you tell me, is it too late then?
I think it depends on your coping skills and how strong they are. So I always like to tell people, you practice coping skills when you're calm. You don't practice them in the moment for the first time. You want to practice them before you're in that situation. And then you want to identify what are the strategies that I'm going to use when I'm going into that situation. So say you are super socially anxious and you have to go into something, right? So before you go there, you want to be practicing your slow breathing. You want to be practicing your grounding. You want to be practicing your imagine your favorite place, doing like getting a drink of water, calming yourself down in some ways so that you can go through it. It will be uncomfortable. That's the thing. Like anxiety feels really bad. It feels really bad in your system. And something that I think helps, especially when I'm talking with especially little kids, to help them know like that's just part of your body. Like that's just what your body does. Like it's not a bad thing. It just is. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just that's what your body does when you feel anxious. And so you want to make sure that you are being able to just still walk through it and be uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Be brave and do it anyway. And then the other thing you can think about is like if you are really scared to go into like a big party, say for instance, you don't have to start by going there to the big party. You can start small so you can get good success in building the strength to use the strategies in situations that aren't as big, aren't as stressful, aren't as anxiety provoking. So maybe you try using your strategies going to the library or going to the coffee shop, and then you can build up to going to a big party or a social event where you don't know anybody and you have to network.
Okay, I love that advice because I feel like so many times neurodivergent adults write me and they're like, so I tried, but then they went to like the Taylor Swift concert or something huge or like a really high pressure work situation where you have to be on. And that's so much pressure. And sometimes we don't even remember our coping mechanisms because we're so bombarded by stimuli. And so I love this idea of like practice in advance.
Oh, yeah. It's huge. Practicing in advance and practicing in situations that aren't as high stakes makes it easier for you to then use them in the bigger stakes. Now, and I always say, like, I love using visuals. I love having things to help me. Like, so I use, I tell my teenagers, I tell my young adults, use your notes. use your notes app in your phone, like write down your strategies, write down your self-talk and look at it. Like, so you have those strategies at hand, so you know what you should be doing and what could help you in those moments, because it's really hard to think.
It's really hard to think. So that's one of the things, I was telling you that I'm writing the anxiety chapter for the book. I'm writing different things and I'm conscious of what people are saying to me, right? So I want to honor how tough this is for people, right? For adults because, we carry a burden. Like we can't help but enter a social situation thinking like this hasn't always gone well for me, right? And we have the history, maybe as a child we were rejected a lot. And it's like it causes, I think, so much pressure. And but I also know as an anxious person that these coping mechanisms can work and that coping skills, your whole brand, it can work.
Oh yeah. And that's what I love about the work that I do, is that you have to figure out what works for you, right? So like I can give suggestions about trying different strategies, but if it's not a strategy that feels right for your body, feels right for you, doesn't really work for you, then it's not going to be a strategy that sticks for you, and then you can move on. Like I always feel like it's sort of like a menu of choices where you're like, well, you could try this or you could try this. And you listen to your body, you listen to how it feels, you listen to what is going on for you. Does it work for me if I do this thing when I'm feeling anxious? Yes or no? And then being able to add that into your toolkit. I love the variety of strategies that people use and how they figure out what to call their anxiety, like depersonalizing it and taking it out of their body, and working with adults. Like they talk about like it's that mean girl from fifth grade. You know what I mean? That's like that. It's like, and then she's talking right back to her. I'm like, you get her. Like,
Oh my God. And the thing is, like, a lot of people with ADHD have big feelings about certain things like mindfulness and grounding. And here's the thing, I have done a lot of mindfulness work and I do find that it helped me, but it was that pre advice that you're giving. Like, I did it in advance.
yeah,
I didn't just try it for the first time, like at a party with the fifth grade mean girl or with somebody who resembles the fifth grade mean girl, because that can set you off too.
right.
And like, so here's my question because you know more about grounding than I do. Like, it has to be before, right? Like, you can't try those techniques. And do they work in the moment of hijack or like, no, they're for before and making you calmer in advance?
I actually think that they can work in both places. So they can
Okay.
work to help you stay calm, but in the moment in panic, they can help you in the moment. But you have to know what it is. Like somebody can't suggest it to you at a party and you're like, "Oh, I don't like it's not going to necessarily work if your brain's already hijacked, right? Like
Okay.
your
Right.
brain's off. That's not a learning time. That's not a time where you can actually like utilize the strategy necessarily if you don't know what it is. So
Right.
that's why I'm always like try it beforehand, and then you can use it in the moment. Like you can use it when you like if you're starting to have a hard time, like to be able to stay present, and that like trying to stay in the present moment. That's what grounding is. Like you're just trying to stay in the present and not be focused on the past or the future, just trying to stay there. And if that's something that helps you, great. And here's the thing, when it comes to mindfulness and grounding especially, like it can be hard for people to find a strategy within those that works. So if one mindfulness strategy doesn't work for you, don't give up on
Um,
mindfulness. Try a different one. So a lot of times people talk about like a moving meditation or moving mindfulness. So you're walking, you're not listening into anything, you're watching the nature around you, you're listening to the birds, you're watching the traffic go by. So that is also mindfulness. I actually just read a phenomenal book, but I think that just it speaks to like my own self-care right now, all about K-dramas. So Korean dramas, right? And how they can be mindful.
oh, I
And
love that.
right. Isn't that a cool idea? I can't wait to talk to this. I am gonna reach out to this woman because I'm so interested in this work that she does. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's Korean American, and she got into K-dramas, loves it. And she talks about K-dramas being mindfulness because you cannot, if you don't speak Korean, you have to pay attention to what's going on. You cannot multitask when you're watching a K-drama. You have to read.
Right.
You have to be mindful. And she also talks about the mindful moment in her body. Like when she's watching a K-drama, she physically relaxes her body. And so it's very interesting. You don't have to do mindfulness where you're sitting and you're chanting for like 15 minutes. That doesn't always work for people. Like for some people, a mindful meditation is phenomenal. For other people, they need to move. They need to watch K-dramas. Whatever is going to work in being mindful, know that it's not just one way of being mindful. There's not just one way that you can use grounding. You can try different techniques and find the one that speaks for you, especially if it's hard to sit and be still. Like we're not meant to sit. Movement is great. Movement helps move feelings through your body, you know?
And you had a great episode on your podcast, and I can't say enough to everybody about Janine's podcast. Coping Skills for Kids and Adults is her whole brand. And if you look for it, and I'll put them things in the link. And you had this great episode about exercise and it helping adults with anxiety. And I listened to it and I was like, oh, that's me. That's me. That's me. And that's my thing. Like I found that I had to do mindfulness on the fly. Like it had to be that every time I stop at a light, I do something
Yep.
instead of it being like, I'm going to go sit in a chair with Zen music and pretend that I'm not going to move because I can't do that. And then I was listening to your episode and I was like, I use exercise a lot.
Yeah.
I use exercise to like bring my emotional temperature down. I think a ton more than I even realized until I was listening to you. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
she's speaking to me.
Oh, well, and I think I like wrote that episode for myself because that's how I manage my anxiety. That's how I manage my frustration is I walk. I walk outside. Like if I get really frustrated, I take a walk. It really helps settle me. I work out, and I say workout, I sort of like cozy workout every day. Like it's not like sometimes I lift weights, but it's like usually like I'm walking or I'm jumping on the trampoline or I'm using the rower, but I'm doing it while I'm watching TV. So it's super chill and it helps reset me. That's how I start my day is like doing that movement. And if I don't, I feel it. I feel it and I know. And like I actually take movement breaks throughout the day because I'm that girl. So I move after lunch. I move when my kids get home because it helps me stay regulated and helps manage all of my feelings throughout the day.
Okay, you just said something I think is really important that's really helped me. And it's been a theme here, which is reset. Because
Yes.
I think, like, if I enter a big party
Mhm.
and I am starting to feel bombarded, because I don't have social anxiety, but what I do have is, oh my God, there's too many people in this room. It's too hot. I
Yes.
get sensory bombarded.
Yep.
And then sometimes I say things I shouldn't say, or I become snappy or whatever because I just can't handle how hot and whatever it is in here.
Yep.
And I feel like one of the things I've learned to do is create a reset for myself. And the problem I have with the reset is all of it involves me going to the ladies' room and doing some exercises. And that's hard because sometimes you can't go. And like for men, I don't know that men, have the same opportunity to be like going to the men's room all the time. So just being like really tactical, I think that reset is really important. And I think to have something you can do is also really important.
Oh yeah, and when you're thinking about a party, I like to get like a cold glass of water because usually people will have something like that. Like you can get
Mhm.
ice and you can get a cold glass of water and just like having that be your reset. Oh, I forgot something from my car, going out to my car and like getting a little bit like just getting cool air on your face and just having that movement break, taking that break. You can fit it in where people don't really know, right? Or I have to take this phone call. You don't have a phone call. You just need to go outside for 5 minutes. Like
Can I call you? Be like, I'm in the bathroom, Janine. I need a reset.
sometimes I will legit text my sister. I'm like, call me in 5. Thanks.
I love that. Find someone who can be your lifeline there. One of my clients plays Candy Crush or something,
Yep.
and she will go in like an empty room with the coats and like just play some Candy Crush. That's the reset. And I was like, that's great. I mean, and if people come in and find you with the coats, no one really cares.
No,
They're
no.
like, oh. Can I escape in here too?
In some ways, I love a big party because I can sort of sneak away without anybody really noticing. Like if it's a big enough gathering, yes, it's overwhelming. Yes, it's a lot of talking, but yes, then I will not be missed for 10 minutes if I go outside. So it makes it a little bit easier to actually use my strategies.
I think that's true. Okay, I have another random question in my random ADHD brain.
Okay.
So this is nonlinear.
It's fine.
Do you have to be psychologically safe to socialize? Because I have read like 20 research studies this week. Like that's been my week. And I keep coming back to the conclusion that like if you feel like, oh, the mean girl from 5th grade is at this event, right? Or this person is super snarky to me. You go in, not feeling psychologically safe. And in that case, like, especially if you have some anxiety, like, I don't know, is it too extreme to say we have to create psychological safety? I'm
It's
sorry,
it
this is like a loaded question.
well, and it's tricky, right? Because and it's so interesting to like read studies about it. I'd love to read some of those studies if you don't mind sharing with me.
Dropbox.
Thank you. But what I find interesting is that you to sort of manage your anxiety, to manage things, you have to be a little bit uncomfortable, right? And what's that comfort level? Like where is it too much versus too little, right? Like you do have to like push because you're not going to be 100% comfortable. But
No,
like what are the things that where how do you know when you're uncomfortable and it's too much versus I'm uncomfortable and I can handle it? And it's that sort of balance of like that's going to look different for everybody. And so it's sort of like by a case by case basis. Like I know when my body when I start to flush and I feel like I'm going to throw up, that's too much. But if I like my legs are just a little bit shaky and my hands are a little bit sweaty, I'm okay. Right? And the only way you get to know that is if to actually try it. So,
and it's so, like, there is some experimentation, right? Because
yeah,
like, I'm not a psychologist like you, so I'm a coach, so I have to sort of, you know, be respectful and make sure I don't push too much, but, like, there is a part of me that feels like there's experimentation, that
yeah,
there is a degree of which, like, I get to know my level of comfort and when it's gonna be too much, even anticipatory wise, like, I know if there's 5 toxic people at the party, like, that's a tipping point, that's too much. But I think that's a really good thing to know because I think my uncomfortable and your uncomfortable are not the same thing.
right. Right. And it's you have to know what your uncomfortable is. And if you don't leave your comfort zone, you never figure out what that is. That's where the work is. That's what's really hard about it. It's like you have to like try and experiment and figure out those places that it's like, oh, that is definitely too much, right? Like say sometimes driving can be anxiety provoking for people. I have an almost new driver, right? So like driving in my town is fine. Driving in Boston is okay. Driving in New York is not okay, right? Like what's your level of,
Right.
of comfortability? But you don't know until you try it. You don't know until you're actually like in there. And maybe you can handle Boston even if you think you can't, right?
Thank you for diving in with me. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of this conversation. Subscribe and follow so you can be notified when part 2 drops. See you all next week. Bye, friends.